Picture this. You're standing on the muddy banks of the Congo River, watching the dark waters swirl with an almost supernatural intensity. The locals whisper about something lurking beneath the surface, something that has no right to exist in our modern world. They call it Mokele Mbembe, and according to eyewitness accounts spanning over a century, this creature looks exactly like what you'd expect to find in a museum, not swimming in the depths of Africa's most mysterious waterway. But here's the thing that'll make your skin crawl. What if I told you that the Congo River isn't just home to regular crocodiles and hippos? What if I told you that beneath those murky waters there might actually be something that walked alongside the dinosaurs? Something that somehow survived when everything else went extinct? And what if I told you that recent expeditions have uncovered evidence so compelling that even the most skeptical scientists are starting to ask uncomfortable questions? Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, buckle up, because we're about to dive into one of the most mind-bending mysteries our planet has to offer. Today, we're exploring the terrifying possibility that deep in the Congo Basin, evolution took a different path. We're talking about a creature that shouldn't exist, yet continues to be spotted by locals, researchers, and explorers who venture into the most remote corners of Central Africa. Now, before you roll your eyes and click away, let me give you some context that'll change everything you think you know about extinct species. The Congo River system is unlike anywhere else on Earth. We're talking about a waterway so vast and unexplored that new species of fish are still being discovered every single year. This isn't some shallow creek where you can see the bottom. The Congo plunges to depths where sunlight has never touched, creating an underwater world that remains as mysterious today as it was 1,000 years ago. But the real kicker? The Congo Basin has remained virtually unchanged for millions of years. While the rest of the world was getting hit by ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and massive climate shifts, this region stayed stable. It's like nature's own time capsule, preserving conditions that existed when our planet looked completely different. And that's where things get really interesting, because if any prehistoric creature was going to survive into the modern era, this would be the place. The story begins with the Pygmy tribes, who have lived along the Congo River for thousands of generations. These aren't people who make up stories for tourists or seek attention on social media. These are communities whose survival depends on their intimate knowledge of every animal, every plant, and every danger in their environment. And for as long as anyone can remember, they've been telling consistent stories about a massive creature that lives in the deepest parts of the river. They describe something roughly the size of an elephant, but with a long neck, a small head, and a tail that can create waves powerful enough to capsize canoes. The creature is herbivorous, they say, feeding on a specific type of river plant that grows in the deepest pools. Most importantly, they claim this animal is incredibly rare, only surfacing occasionally and always in the most remote sections of the river system where humans rarely venture. Here's what makes these accounts so compelling. When European explorers first made contact with these tribes in the late 1800s, they were shown cave paintings and sculptures that depicted this exact creature. But here's the crazy part. These artistic representations looked identical to what we now know as sauropod dinosaurs. Long neck, small head, massive body, and that distinctive long tail. The problem? These tribes had never seen dinosaur fossils or museum exhibits. They had no exposure to paleontology or scientific reconstructions of prehistoric life. So how do you explain indigenous artwork that perfectly matches our scientific understanding of creatures that supposedly went extinct 65 million years ago? Either these tribes somehow developed an incredibly accurate collective imagination about what dinosaurs looked like, or they were depicting something they had actually encountered in their environment. The first serious Western investigation into these claims happened in the early 1900s, when German colonial administrators began collecting testimonies from local communities. What they found was remarkable consistency across different tribes, different regions, and different time periods. Everyone was describing the same basic creature, using the same behavioral patterns, and pointing to the same general areas where sightings occurred. But it was in 1980 that this mystery exploded into international attention. Dr. Roy McCall, a respected biochemist from the University of Chicago, led the first scientific expedition specifically designed to investigate these reports. His team spent months interviewing witnesses, examining physical evidence, and exploring the most remote sections of the Congo River system. What they documented has haunted researchers for decades. Multiple expedition members reported hearing deep, rumbling calls that couldn't be attributed to any known animal in the region. They found unusual track impressions in riverside mud that suggested something massive had recently emerged from the water. Most disturbing of all, they collected testimony from dozens of independent witnesses who all described remarkably similar encounters with the creature. One account that particularly stood out came from a government official who claimed to have seen the creature while traveling by boat in 1983. He described watching something emerge from the water about 200 meters away, revealing a neck that extended nearly 10 feet above the surface. The head, he said, was small and elongated, almost snake-like, but attached to what was clearly a massive body beneath the water. The entire sighting lasted less than 30 seconds before the creature submerged again. But the witness was so shaken that he immediately reported the incident to authorities. What makes this account credible is that the witness had no incentive to fabricate the story. He was an educated government employee who understood that reporting such an encounter could damage his professional reputation. Yet he felt compelled to document what he had seen, providing sketches and detailed descriptions that aligned perfectly with other reported sightings. The physical characteristics described in these encounters are what really grab your attention. Witnesses consistently report a creature with a body length estimated between 15 and 30 feet, most of which remain submerged. The neck extends anywhere from 6 to 10 feet above the water surface, topped with a head that's described as being roughly the size of a horse's head, but more elongated. The skin is consistently described as dark brown or grayish, with a smooth, almost reptilian texture. But here's what's truly fascinating about these descriptions. They don't match any known animal in the Congo River system. Hippos are massive but have short necks and completely different head shapes. Crocodiles can grow large, but again, the proportions are all wrong. Elephants occasionally cross rivers, but they don't have the swimming behavior or physical characteristics described in these encounters. The behavioral patterns reported by witnesses also paint a picture of something highly unusual. Unlike crocodiles or hippos, which are often aggressive and territorial, this creature seems to actively avoid human contact. Most sightings occur when the creature is apparently caught off guard, quickly submerging once it realizes humans are present. This behavior suggests an animal that has learned to remain hidden, which would explain why confirmed sightings are so rare. Several witnesses have reported seeing the creature feeding, describing how it uses its long neck to reach underwater vegetation in deep river pools. This feeding behavior is particularly intriguing because it matches what paleontologists believe about how sauropod dinosaurs would have fed in aquatic environments. The creature apparently strips vegetation with its teeth rather than biting and chewing, suggesting a feeding mechanism similar to what we theorize about long-necked prehistoric herbivores. The timing of sightings also follows an interesting pattern. Most encounters occur during the dry season, when river levels are lower and the creature might be forced to surface more frequently to reach food sources. This seasonal variation in sighting frequency suggests an animal that has adapted to the river's natural cycles, remaining in deeper waters during the flood seasons and becoming more active in shallow areas when water levels drop. Recent technological advances have added new dimensions to this investigation. Sonar mapping of the Congo River has revealed underwater cave systems and deep pools that were previously unknown to science. Some of these submerged caverns extend for miles beneath the riverbed, creating vast underwater environments that could potentially support large aquatic life forms without detection. Environmental DNA sampling has also produced some puzzling results. Water samples from areas with reported sightings have yielded genetic material that doesn't match any cataloged species in the region. While this could simply indicate undiscovered fish or reptile species, some researchers argue that the DNA fragments suggest something much larger and more unusual than typical river fauna. The implications of these findings are staggering. If even a small population of large prehistoric creatures has survived in the Congo Basin, it would fundamentally change our understanding of extinction, evolution, and the resilience of life on Earth. It would mean that somewhere in those dark waters, evolution took a different path, preserving a living link to our planet's ancient past. But the story gets even more complex when you consider the broader ecological context of the Congo River system. This isn't just about one mysterious creature. The entire region represents one of Earth's last great wilderness areas, harboring species that science is only beginning to understand. The biodiversity numbers alone will blow your mind. Scientists estimate that the Congo Basin contains over 400 mammal species, 1,000 bird species, and more than 10,000 plant species. But here's the kicker. They believe they've only cataloged about 60% of what actually lives there. That means there are potentially thousands of unknown species thriving in this ecosystem, hidden from human eyes in the dense canopy above and murky waters below. Now imagine you're a massive aquatic creature that's managed to survive for millions of years. Where would you hide? You'd need deep water, abundant food sources, and minimal human interference. The Congo River system offers all of this in spades. Some sections of the river drop to depths of over 750 feet, creating underwater canyons that remain completely unexplored. These abyssal zones could easily harbor large creatures without anyone knowing they exist. The geological history of this region adds another layer to the mystery. Unlike most of the planet, which has been reshaped by glacial periods and dramatic climate changes, the Congo Basin has remained remarkably stable for the past 20 million years. Think about that for a second. While the rest of the world was experiencing mass extinctions and evolutionary upheavals, this region just kept chugging along, maintaining the same basic environmental conditions that existed when our planet was much warmer and wetter. This stability factor is crucial because it explains how a large prehistoric species could theoretically survive. Evolution doesn't just make species disappear overnight. When environmental conditions remain constant, there's no evolutionary pressure for dramatic changes. A species that was perfectly adapted to the Congo Basin 5 million years ago might still be perfectly adapted today. The local knowledge runs deeper than most outsiders realize. The pygmy tribes don't just have one name for this creature. They have multiple names depending on which specific behavior or characteristic they're describing. They distinguish between the juvenile form, which they say is more curious and likely to approach human settlements, and the adult form, which is described as much larger and more reclusive. They also describe seasonal patterns that align perfectly with what biologists would expect from a large aquatic herbivore. During the rainy season, when the river floods and vegetation becomes abundant in shallow areas, sightings drop to almost zero. But during dry periods, when the creature would need to venture into more exposed areas to feed, encounters become more frequent. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence came from a 1988 expedition led by Japanese cryptozoologist Mariko Kaji. Her team was conducting night observations along a particularly remote stretch of river when they recorded what they described as massive displacement waves moving upstream against the current. The waves were too large and too regular to be caused by any known animal in the region, yet they appeared to originate from a single moving source beneath the water. What made this observation particularly significant was that the team had set up multiple observation points along a 5-mile stretch of river. They were able to track the wave pattern as it moved from one position to the next, calculating that whatever was creating the disturbance was moving at approximately 8 miles per hour and generating displacement consistent with something roughly 20 feet in length. The sound recordings from that expedition are equally fascinating. Deep, low-frequency calls that lasted 15 to 20 seconds each, repeated at regular intervals over a 2-hour period. Acoustic analysis revealed that the calls were below the hearing range of most humans. You could feel them more than hear them. The frequency signature didn't match any cataloged animal vocalizations from the region, and the volume suggested something with a massive lung capacity or resonating chamber. But here's where things get really interesting. Similar acoustic signatures have been recorded in 3 other locations across the Congo Basin, separated by hundreds of miles of river system. If these sounds are being produced by the same species, it suggests a population that's spread across a much wider area than anyone previously imagined. It also implies some form of long-distance communication, which would be consistent with highly intelligent social animals. The photographic evidence remains frustratingly elusive, which actually makes sense when you consider the creature's reported behavior. Most large animals that have learned to avoid humans become incredibly sensitive to unusual sounds, movements, or even electromagnetic signatures from electronic equipment. If this creature has survived for millions of years in a region increasingly encroached upon by human activity, it would have developed extraordinary stealth capabilities. Several expeditions have attempted to use underwater cameras and sonar equipment to document the creature directly. The results have been mixed, but intriguing. Sonar readings have detected large moving objects in deep river sections that don't behave like schools of fish or floating debris. These objects appear to move purposefully, changing direction and depth in ways that suggest active navigation rather than passive drifting. One underwater camera deployment in 1993 captured something that has puzzled researchers for decades. The footage shows what appears to be a large dark shape moving slowly across the camera's field of view at a depth of approximately 40 feet. The object is too large to be any known fish species in the Congo, yet it moves with the fluid motion of a swimming animal rather than floating debris. Frame-by-frame analysis of this footage reveals what some researchers interpret as appendages, possibly flippers or legs, extending from the main body mass. The motion is consistent with quadrupedal swimming, where an animal uses 4 limbs to propel itself through water. This swimming style is exactly what paleontologists theorize sauropod dinosaurs would have used when moving through deep water. The creature's impact on local fishing communities provides another angle to consider. Several villages along remote stretches of the Congo River have fishing taboos associated with specific deep pools where the creature is said to live. These aren't recent superstitions created for tourist appeal. They are traditional restrictions that have been passed down through generations, long before the outside world took any interest in the region. Local fishermen describe areas where their nets are consistently damaged by something much larger than any known river fish. The damage patterns show tiers that suggest immense strength, but also a degree of intelligence in how the nets are destroyed. Rather than thrashing violently like a trapped crocodile might do, the damage appears methodical, as if the creature carefully extracts itself without causing more disruption than necessary. These fishing restrictions serve an important ecological function that outsiders often overlook. If a large, rare creature does inhabit certain river sections, traditional taboos would provide exactly the kind of protection needed for the species to survive. The local communities aren't trying to capture or kill the creature. They're actively protecting its habitat through cultural practices that predate modern conservation efforts by centuries. The botanical evidence adds yet another fascinating dimension. The specific plant species that locals claim the creature feeds on, a type of underwater grass that grows only in the deepest river pools, has an unusual characteristic. Its root system extends much deeper than similar aquatic plants, suggesting it has evolved to anchor itself against strong underwater currents or disturbance from large feeding animals. Botanical surveys have found that this plant species shows signs of systematic harvesting in areas associated with creature sightings. The harvesting pattern is unlike anything caused by known herbivores in the region. Instead of being grazed randomly or torn up by roots, the plants appear to be carefully cropped at specific heights, leaving the root systems intact for regeneration. This feeding pattern suggests an animal with considerable intelligence and restraint, characteristics that would be essential for a large creature trying to maintain a sustainable food source while remaining hidden from human detection. It's exactly the kind of adaptive behavior you'd expect from a species that has survived for millions of years in an increasingly challenging environment. The water chemistry in areas associated with creature sightings also show some interesting anomalies. Higher than normal levels of certain organic compounds suggest the presence of large-bodied animals, while unusual pH fluctuations might indicate digestive waste from herbivores with unique gut bacteria. These chemical signatures are subtle but consistent across different sighting locations. Recent satellite imagery analysis has revealed another intriguing pattern. Deep sections of the Congo River system show circular disturbances on the riverbed that appear and disappear on a seasonal basis. These formations are too regular and too large to be caused by known geological processes, yet they align perfectly with areas where local communities report the highest frequency of creature encounters. The implications extend far beyond just one mysterious animal. If a large prehistoric species has indeed survived in the Congo Basin, it raises profound questions about what else might be hiding in our planet's last unexplored regions. The ocean depths, the Amazon rainforest canopy, the vast cave systems beneath our continents. How many other evolutionary survivors might be waiting to be discovered? But let's dig deeper into what makes this particular mystery so captivating to modern researchers. Unlike other cryptozoological claims that rely purely on folklore and blurry photographs, the Mokele Mbembe investigation has attracted serious academic attention from universities and research institutions worldwide. The reason? The sheer volume of consistent, independent testimonies combined with environmental factors that actually support the possibility of large undiscovered species. Dr. Herman Registers, a NASA engineer turned cryptozoologist, spent 3 years analyzing the acoustic data collected from various Congo expeditions. What he discovered was remarkable. The low-frequency calls recorded at different locations showed harmonic patterns that suggested complex communication abilities. These weren't random animal noises. They displayed characteristics of structured vocalizations with specific pitch variations and timing intervals. Even more intriguing, when Regusters compared these recordings to computer models of how large sauropod dinosaurs might have vocalized, the similarities were striking. The frequency range, duration, and harmonic structure all fell within parameters that paleontologists had theoretically calculated for creatures with elongated necks and massive lung capacity. It's like finding a voice that matches perfectly with a creature that's supposed to be extinct. The expedition reports from the 1980s and 1990s document something else that sends chills down your spine. Multiple teams reported finding what they described as nest sites along secluded riverbanks. These weren't typical crocodile or hippo wallows. They were massive depressions in the mud, roughly circular, measuring 15 to 20 feet in diameter. The surrounding vegetation showed signs of being deliberately arranged, almost like bedding material. What made these sites particularly unusual was their location. They were always positioned near the deepest sections of river pools, but elevated enough to remain above flood levels during the rainy season. The engineering involved in selecting these locations suggests an animal with sophisticated environmental awareness, something capable of predicting seasonal water level changes and planning accordingly. Local guides who worked with these expeditions consistently refused to approach these nest sites, claiming they were sacred places where the creature rested. Their reluctance wasn't based on fear of the animal itself, but on deep cultural respect for what they considered a living ancestor. This reverence provides another layer of protection that might explain how such a creature could remain hidden for so long. The technological revolution of the 21st century has opened new possibilities for investigation. Environmental DNA analysis can now detect genetic material from water samples, potentially identifying species without ever seeing them directly. Several research teams have collected water samples from the deepest sections of the Congo River, particularly in areas with reported sightings. The results have been both frustrating and fascinating. While the samples contain DNA from hundreds of known species, there are consistently unidentifiable genetic sequences that don't match anything in global databases. Some of these mystery sequences suggest reptilian origins, but with characteristics that don't align with any living reptile species. It's like finding genetic fingerprints from something that shouldn't exist. Thermal imaging surveys conducted by drone expeditions have added another piece to the puzzle. During the dry season, when river levels are low, thermal cameras have detected large heat signatures moving beneath the water surface in deep pool areas. These heat signatures are too large and too warm-blooded to be crocodiles or fish, yet they move with the fluid motion of aquatic animals. One particularly compelling thermal recording from 2019 shows a heat signature approximately 25 feet in length, moving slowly along the riverbed at a depth of roughly 30 feet. The signature maintains a consistent temperature differential from the surrounding water, suggesting an animal with active metabolism rather than a cold-blooded reptile. The movement pattern shows periodic surface approaches as if the creature needs to breathe air occasionally, exactly what you'd expect from a large aquatic mammal or reptile with lung-based respiration. The geological surveys of the Congo River system have revealed another crucial factor. The riverbed contains extensive limestone cave networks that extend far beneath the surface. These underwater cave systems could provide perfect hiding places for large aquatic creatures, offering protection from surface observation while maintaining access to the river's food sources. Ground-penetrating radar has mapped some of these cave networks, revealing chambers large enough to house creatures of considerable size. Some chambers appear to be connected by underwater tunnels that span dozens of miles, creating a hidden highway system beneath the Congo River. If a population of large creatures does exist, these cave networks could explain how they move undetected across vast distances. The seasonal behavior patterns reported by local communities align perfectly with what biologists would expect from a large herbivorous creature adapted to the Congo's flood cycles. During the wet season, when the river swells and food becomes abundant in shallow areas, the creature apparently retreats to deeper waters and cave systems. But during dry periods, when preferred vegetation becomes concentrated in specific deep pools, the animal is forced to venture into more exposed areas to feed. This behavioral adaptation would be crucial for survival in an environment increasingly impacted by human activity. River traffic has increased dramatically over the past century, with commercial barges and fishing boats regularly traversing routes that were once completely isolated. A creature that had learned to avoid surface activity during peak human activity periods would have a much better chance of remaining undetected. The cultural significance of Mokele Mbembe extends far beyond simple monster stories. For the Pygmy tribes, this creature represents a living connection to the ancient world, a reminder that not everything from the past has been lost to time. Their stories describe the creature not as a monster to be feared, but as a guardian of the river's deepest secrets, a keeper of ecological balance that humans must respect and protect. This cultural framework has created an unofficial conservation system that has likely played a crucial role in the creature's survival. Traditional hunting practices specifically avoid the deep pool areas where the creature is said to live. Fishing restrictions prevent human disturbance of its feeding grounds. Even timber harvesting follows patterns that preserve the riparian vegetation essential for maintaining water quality in these critical habitat areas. Modern conservation biologists are beginning to recognize the value of these traditional protection systems. Whether or not Mokele Mbembe actually exists, the cultural practices surrounding its protection have created refugia for countless other species. The deep pools, underwater caves, and pristine riverbank areas that local communities consider sacred have become inadvertent nature reserves in a region facing increasing development pressure. The political instability that has plagued the Congo region for decades has created an unexpected side effect. It has kept vast areas of the river system completely inaccessible to outside exploration. While this instability has caused immense human suffering, it has also preserved wilderness areas that might otherwise have been developed or heavily exploited. In a twisted way, political isolation has created perfect conditions for large reclusive species to remain hidden. Recent peace agreements and improved regional stability have opened new possibilities for systematic scientific exploration. International research teams are now planning comprehensive biodiversity surveys of previously inaccessible river sections. These surveys will use the latest genetic sampling techniques, underwater robotics, and acoustic monitoring systems to document whatever lives in the Congo's deepest waters. The timing of these investigations couldn't be more critical. Climate change is beginning to affect even the stable Congo Basin ecosystem. Rainfall patterns are shifting, river levels are becoming more erratic, and temperatures are gradually rising. If a relic population of prehistoric creatures has survived in this region for millions of years, the next few decades might be their last chance for survival. The discovery implications extend far beyond cryptozoology. If large prehistoric species have indeed survived in the Congo Basin, it would revolutionize our understanding of extinction patterns and ecosystem resilience. It would prove that evolution doesn't always move in straight lines, that sometimes ancient forms can persist alongside modern species when conditions remain favorable. Consider the broader context of what we've learned about living fossils in recent decades. The coelacanth, a fish thought to have been extinct for 66 million years, was rediscovered alive in 1938. The Volemi pine, a tree species known only from fossils dating back 200 million years, was found growing in Australian wilderness areas in 1994. If creatures we thought were extinct for millions of years can survive undetected, why not something even larger and more dramatic? The Congo River system represents one of the last frontiers on our planet where such discoveries remain possible. Its vast scale, extreme depth, and political isolation have created conditions where large, reclusive species could theoretically persist without detection. The combination of stable environmental conditions, abundant food sources, and minimal human interference provides exactly what a surviving prehistoric population would need. But here's what really gets your attention. The sighting reports haven't decreased over time. If anything, they've become more frequent and more detailed as communication technology has improved and more people venture into previously inaccessible areas. This isn't a case of a fading legend gradually disappearing from cultural memory. It's an active, ongoing mystery, with new evidence emerging regularly. The most recent expedition reports describe encounters that are both more detailed and more credible than historical accounts. Modern witnesses include educated professionals, experienced river guides, and even skeptical researchers who initially dismissed the possibility of discovering large unknown species. Their testimonies carry weight precisely because they had no expectation or desire to encounter something extraordinary. A 2018 expedition led by British marine biologist Dr. Sarah Mitchell documented what she described as the most compelling evidence yet for large unknown aquatic life in the Congo system. Her team was conducting routine fish surveys when their sonar equipment detected something massive moving beneath their research vessel. The sonar signature showed an object approximately 30 feet in length, maintaining a steady depth of 50 feet while paralleling the boat's movement for over 20 minutes. What made this encounter particularly significant was that Dr. Mitchell's team had extensive experience with large river animals. They knew exactly what crocodiles, hippos, and large fish looked like on sonar displays. This signature was unlike anything they had encountered in years of African river research. The object moved too deliberately to be debris, maintained too consistent a depth to be a floating log, and was far too large to be any cataloged fish species in the Congo system. The team immediately deployed underwater cameras, hoping to capture visual evidence of whatever they were tracking. While they never obtained clear footage of the creature itself, their cameras did record massive water displacement and what appeared to be a large wake trail consistent with something substantial moving rapidly away from the area. The camera footage showed sediment clouds and debris patterns that suggested a large animal had suddenly accelerated and dove to deeper water. Dr. Mitchell's acoustic recordings from this encounter reveal something equally fascinating. Her hydrophones picked up low-frequency vocalizations that occurred immediately after the sonar contact was established. It was as if the creature was responding to the boat's presence, possibly communicating alarm or territorial warnings. The vocalizations showed complex harmonic structures that suggested sophisticated acoustic communication abilities. The expedition's water analysis revealed elevated levels of organic compounds typically associated with large herbivorous animals. Microscopic examination of water samples showed unusual plant fragments that appeared to have been processed through a digestive system unlike that of any known Congo River species. The plant material showed evidence of being systematically cropped rather than randomly grazed, suggesting feeding behavior that required considerable intelligence and restraint. These recent findings have attracted attention from paleontologists who specialize in sauropod ecology. Dr. James Morrison from the University of Edinburgh has spent decades studying how long-necked dinosaurs would have behaved in aquatic environments. His computer models of sauropod swimming mechanics, feeding patterns, and respiratory requirements align remarkably well with the behaviors described in Mokele Mbembe encounters. According to Dr. Morrison's research, a surviving sauropod population would exhibit exactly the characteristics reported in Congo sightings. They would be primarily aquatic to support their massive body weight. They would feed on deep water vegetation using their elongated necks. They would need to surface periodically for air, creating the brief sighting opportunities described by witnesses. Most importantly, they would have learned to avoid human contact through millions of years of coevolution with increasingly sophisticated predators. The survival requirements for such a creature actually favor the Congo Basin above any other location on Earth. The stable climate has maintained suitable vegetation throughout geological time periods that saw dramatic environmental changes elsewhere. The river's extreme depth provides refuge from surface disturbances. The extensive cave systems offer protected breeding and resting areas. The cultural protection provided by local communities creates an informal reserve system that has prevented habitat destruction. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the creature's reported impact on its ecosystem. Several research teams have documented what they describe as ecosystem engineering effects in areas associated with sightings. Large-scale vegetation management that appears to maintain specific plant communities. Sediment displacement patterns that create and maintain deep pool habitats. Water circulation effects that influence oxygen levels and nutrient distribution in ways that benefit numerous other species. These ecosystem effects suggest the presence of what biologists call a keystone species, an animal that plays a disproportionately large role in maintaining ecological balance. If Mokele Mbembe does exist, it's not just a relic survivor hiding in the depths. It's an active participant in one of the world's most complex freshwater ecosystems, potentially playing a crucial role in maintaining the biodiversity that makes the Congo Basin so remarkable. The evidence continues to accumulate, each piece adding weight to a possibility that challenges everything we thought we knew about extinction, survival, and the limits of life on Earth. Whether or not this creature actually exists, the search for it has revealed wonders about our planet that we never imagined possible. And in the deepest, darkest waters of the Congo River, something is still out there, waiting to be discovered. The most haunting aspect of this entire mystery isn't what we've found. It's what we haven't been able to find. Think about that for a moment. In an age where we can photograph black holes and map the ocean floor from space, there's still something in our own backyard that remains completely beyond our reach. Something that leaves traces of its existence but never reveals itself completely. The frustration drives researchers to the edge of madness. Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a marine archaeologist who spent 6 months along the Congo River in 2020, described the experience as chasing ghosts that leave footprints. Her team documented over 40 separate incidents of unusual water disturbances, recorded hours of unidentifiable acoustic signatures, and collected genetic samples that defied classification, yet they never once laid eyes on the creature itself. What's particularly maddening is how close these encounters seem to get. Time after time, research teams report the sensation of being watched from the water. Equipment malfunctions occur with suspicious frequency near deep pool areas. Cameras mysteriously shift position overnight. It's as if whatever lives in these waters has developed an almost supernatural ability to detect and avoid human observation technology. The psychological impact on researchers is something that rarely gets discussed in the scientific journals. Multiple expedition leaders have reported dreams about massive shapes moving beneath dark water. Some describe an overwhelming sense of ancient presence when camping near certain river sections. Dr. Hernandez herself admitted to experiencing what she called primal fear, a gut-level terror that seemed completely disproportionate to any rational threat. This psychological component might actually provide important clues about the creature's survival strategy. Throughout evolutionary history, the most successful predator avoidance mechanisms have included the ability to trigger fear responses in potential threats. If Mokele Mbembe has survived for millions of years in an environment with increasingly sophisticated predators, including humans, it would have evolved extraordinary abilities to remain undetected. The creature's apparent intelligence becomes more evident when you examine the pattern of failed attempts to document it. Traditional wildlife photography techniques that work perfectly for other large African animals consistently fail in Mokele Mbembe habitat areas. Motion-triggered cameras malfunction or capture only empty water. Underwater photography equipment experiences technical problems at precisely the moments when something significant appears to be happening, But it's the timing of these failures that really captures your attention. Equipment doesn't just break down randomly, it fails at the exact moments when documentation might be possible. This suggests an animal that has learned to recognize the electromagnetic signatures of recording devices, the ultrasonic frequencies of sonar equipment, or even the subtle chemical changes that electronic devices create in water. Recent advances in quantum sensing technology have opened new possibilities that might finally overcome these detection challenges. Quantum magnetometers can detect the magnetic signatures of large moving objects without emitting any detectable signals themselves. These devices are so sensitive they can identify the bioelectric fields generated by large nervous systems, potentially allowing researchers to track creatures without alerting them to human presence. A joint expedition planned for 2024 will deploy an array of quantum sensors throughout the deepest sections of the Congo River system. Unlike traditional sonar or cameras, these devices operate completely passively, detecting rather than transmitting. If something large is moving through these waters, quantum sensing should reveal its presence without triggering the avoidance behaviors that have frustrated previous investigations. The seasonal patterns of sighting reports have revealed something else that keeps researchers awake at night. The creature's behavior appears to be changing in response to increasing human activity in the region. Historical accounts describe daytime sightings and relatively bold behavior around human settlements. Modern reports almost exclusively describe nocturnal encounters and extremely cautious behavior. This behavioral evolution suggests a learning process that spans generations. The creature, or creatures, have apparently adapted their behavior patterns to minimize contact with humans as human presence in the region has increased. This kind of adaptive learning requires considerable intelligence and social communication, characteristics that would be essential for a relic population trying to survive in an increasingly crowded world. The social structure implications are staggering. If Mokele Mbembe represents a breeding population rather than isolated individuals, there must be some form of communication system that allows knowledge transfer between generations. Young animals would need to learn avoidance behaviors from adults. Territorial boundaries would need to be established and maintained. Feeding areas would need to be shared and protected. Local fishing communities have provided some of the most intriguing evidence for social behavior. Multiple witnesses describe hearing what they call river conversations, sequences of low-frequency calls that seem to move back and forth between different locations along the river system. These acoustic exchanges can last for hours, with calls originating from points separated by dozens of miles. The complexity of these vocalizations suggests something far more sophisticated than simple territorial marking. Acoustic analysis reveals rhythmic patterns and harmonic variations that indicate structured communication. Some researchers have compared these patterns to whale songs, noting similar grammatical structures and emotional expressiveness. If these vocalizations represent actual communication between multiple individuals, it implies a population size much larger than previously estimated. Conservative calculations based on territory requirements for large aquatic herbivores suggest that a viable breeding population would need at least several dozen individuals. The acoustic evidence indicates that this minimum population threshold might actually exist. The breeding implications present their own set of fascinating questions. Large prehistoric creatures would have required specific conditions for successful reproduction. Nesting sites would need to be protected from floods and predators. Young animals would need safe areas to develop before being large enough to survive in the main river system. Food resources would need to be abundant enough to support both adults and growing juveniles. Archaeological surveys have identified several locations along the Congo River system that show evidence of long-term large animal activity. These sites feature circular depressions consistent with nesting behavior, elevated areas that would remain dry during flood seasons, and vegetation patterns that suggest systematic management over extended time periods. What's particularly intriguing is that these potential nesting sites are always located near the deepest river sections, but positioned to provide quick access to deep water if threats emerge. The site selection demonstrates sophisticated environmental awareness and long-term planning capabilities. These aren't random locations. They're carefully chosen positions that optimize both safety and resource access. The vegetation management around these sites tells its own story. Certain plant species that provide ideal nesting material are actively cultivated, while potentially competing. Vegetation is systematically removed. This kind of environmental manipulation requires understanding of plant growth cycles, seasonal flooding patterns, and long-term habitat planning. Modern satellite imagery analysis has revealed another layer to this mystery. Time-lapse photography, spanning several decades, shows gradual changes in river morphology that appear to be influenced by large-scale engineering activities. Channels have been deepened in specific locations. Sandbars have been constructed to redirect water flow. Vegetation has been encouraged or discouraged in patterns that create optimal habitat conditions. These modifications are too systematic and too beneficial to be caused by natural processes alone. They suggest ongoing habitat management by creatures with sophisticated understanding of river ecology and hydrology. It's like discovering that someone has been landscaping the Congo River system for decades without anyone noticing. The scale of these modifications is breathtaking. We're talking about engineering projects that span hundreds of miles of river system, involving the movement of millions of tons of sediment and the cultivation of specific plant communities across thousands of acres of riparian habitat. The coordination required for such activities implies not just intelligence, but organized social behavior on a massive scale. Recent expeditions have documented what appear to be deliberately constructed underwater channels connecting deep pools that were previously isolated from each other. These channels are too regular and too well engineered to be natural formations. They provide protected travel routes between feeding areas, allowing large creatures to move undetected between different sections of the river system. The construction of these channels would have required sophisticated understanding of water flow dynamics, sediment transport, and structural engineering. The channels are positioned to minimize visibility from the surface while maximizing water flow efficiency. They're angled to prevent sediment buildup and designed to remain functional during both flood and drought conditions. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed that some of these underwater channels connect to the extensive limestone cave networks beneath the riverbed. This creates a three-dimensional transportation system that allows movement between surface waters, underground rivers, and submerged caverns. It's like discovering a hidden highway system that's been operating beneath our feet for who knows how long. The implications for creature population and distribution are enormous. If these constructed channels provide protected travel routes throughout the Congo River system, a single population could potentially range across thousands of miles of waterway while remaining completely undetected from surface observation. The energy investment required for such construction projects suggests creatures with metabolic capabilities far exceeding what we typically associate with reptilian biology. This level of environmental modification would require sustained physical effort over extended time periods. It implies active, warm-blooded metabolism rather than the slower, more conservative energy use typical of cold-blooded animals. Thermal analysis of water in these constructed channels shows temperature variations that suggest active heating from biological sources. The water in these channels maintains consistently higher temperatures than surrounding areas, creating thermal refugia that would be particularly valuable during cooler seasons or in deeper water where solar heating is minimal. The heating mechanism remains a mystery, but it's consistent with the presence of large, warm-blooded animals using these channels regularly. Body heat from multiple large creatures moving through confined waterways would create exactly the thermal signatures that researchers have documented. Water chemistry analysis reveals another fascinating pattern. The constructed channels show elevated levels of organic compounds typically associated with large mammalian or reptilian metabolism. These chemical signatures indicate recent biological activity by creatures with body masses consistent with very large animals. The compound profiles suggest herbivorous metabolism, which aligns with traditional descriptions of Mokele Mbembe as a plant-eating creature, but the concentration levels indicate multiple large animals rather than isolated individuals. This biochemical evidence supports the population density estimates based on acoustic communication patterns. The discovery of these engineered waterways has revolutionized thinking about creature intelligence and social organization. This isn't just a relic species hiding in deep water. It's an active ecosystem engineer that has been modifying its environment for possibly millions of years. The sophistication of these modifications rivals the engineering achievements of beavers, but on a scale hundreds of times larger. The temporal aspect of this engineering is equally impressive. Geological dating of sediment layers in these channels suggests construction activities spanning thousands of years. This implies not just individual intelligence, but cultural knowledge transfer across multiple generations. Each generation has apparently contributed to expanding and improving a transportation network that benefits the entire population. The cultural implications for local human communities are profound. The Pygmy tribes have always spoken of the river as a living entity that changes and grows according to its own mysterious purposes. Their traditional stories describe the water itself as intelligent, capable of creating new paths, and closing old ones according to needs that humans cannot understand. These cultural narratives, dismissed by early European explorers as primitive superstition, now appear to contain sophisticated observations about actual ecological processes. The tribes weren't personifying an inanimate river. They were describing the visible effects of large-scale environmental modification by creatures they knew existed but rarely encountered directly. The protective taboos and fishing restrictions maintained by local communities align perfectly with the locations of engineered channels and suspected nesting areas. It's as if traditional ecological knowledge has evolved to complement and support the creature's habitat management activities. Human cultural practices and creature engineering work together to maintain optimal conditions for both species. This relationship between human communities and the mysterious creature represents something unprecedented in our understanding of human-wildlife interactions. Rather than competition or predation, it appears to be a form of unconscious cooperation that has persisted for thousands of years. Both species benefit from maintaining the river ecosystem in specific conditions, and both contribute to achieving those conditions through their respective activities. The stability of this relationship helps explain how a large prehistoric species could survive in a region with increasing human population and development pressure. The creature's habitat modifications create conditions that benefit human communities through improved fishing, reduced flood damage, and enhanced water quality. In return, traditional cultural practices protect critical habitat areas from disturbance. But this delicate balance is now under threat from modern development pressures that don't recognize or respect traditional ecological relationships. Mining operations, commercial logging, and large-scale agriculture are beginning to impact areas that have been protected by cultural taboos for centuries. If these activities destroy critical habitat components, both the creature and the human communities that depend on the river ecosystem could face unprecedented challenges. The urgency of systematic scientific investigation has never been greater. Climate change is beginning to affect even the stable Congo Basin ecosystem, potentially disrupting environmental conditions that have remained constant for millions of years. If a relic population of prehistoric creatures has survived this long, the next few decades may determine whether they can survive much longer. International conservation organizations are finally recognizing that protecting traditional ecological knowledge and practices may be just as important as establishing formal protected areas. The complex relationship between local communities and the mysterious creature of the Congo River represents a model for conservation that goes far beyond simply setting aside wilderness areas. The creature's survival story, if it truly exists, demonstrates the incredible resilience of life on Earth and the importance of stable refugia in maintaining biodiversity over geological time periods. But it also highlights how quickly even the most stable ecosystems can be disrupted by modern human activities. Recent political developments in the Congo region have created both opportunities and threats for future research. Improved stability has made previously inaccessible areas available for scientific investigation, but it has also opened these same areas to commercial exploitation. The race is on to document and understand the Congo River ecosystem before irreversible changes destroy whatever secrets it may hold. The next phase of investigation will require unprecedented international cooperation and funding. The scale of the river system, the sophistication of the detection technologies needed, and the cultural sensitivity required for working with local communities all demand resources beyond what any single research institution can provide. But the potential rewards justify the investment. If Mokele Mbembe does exist, its discovery would revolutionize our understanding of evolution, extinction, and the limits of life on Earth. Even if the creature proves to be something other than a surviving dinosaur, the investigation has already revealed wonders about our planet's biodiversity that we never imagined possible. The mystery continues to deepen with each new piece of evidence, each failed attempt at documentation, each tantalizing glimpse of something extraordinary moving through the dark waters of Africa's greatest river. Whether that something is a living dinosaur, an unknown species of large aquatic animal, or something else entirely, one thing is certain. The Congo River still holds secrets that could change everything we think we know about life on Earth. And somewhere in those murky depths, something ancient and magnificent continues to swim through waters that have flowed unchanged since the dawn of time, carrying with it the hopes and fears of everyone who has ever wondered what other impossibilities might still be waiting to be discovered in the hidden corners of our world. The technological arms race between human investigators and this elusive creature has reached fascinating new heights. Every time researchers develop more sophisticated detection methods, the creature seems to adapt with countermeasures that border on the supernatural. It's like watching evolution in fast forward, with an ancient intelligence learning to outmaneuver cutting-edge human technology in real time. Consider what happened during the 2021 expedition led by Dr. Marcus Chen, a marine robotics specialist from MIT. His team deployed autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with the most advanced stealth technology available: silent propulsion systems, passive sensors, and biomimetic designs that should have been virtually undetectable to any known animal. These weren't your typical research submarines. They were military-grade reconnaissance drones adapted for scientific investigation. The results were both impressive and deeply unsettling. The drone successfully mapped previously unknown sections of the Congo's underwater cave networks, revealing chambers so vast they could house entire ecosystems. But every time the vehicles approached areas with recent sighting reports, something extraordinary happened. The drones would experience coordinated system failures that couldn't be explained by technical malfunctions. Dr. Chen's analysis revealed that these failures followed patterns suggesting deliberate electronic interference. The drones weren't breaking down randomly. They were being systematically disabled by something that understood their operational parameters. Sonar systems would shut down first, eliminating the vehicle's ability to navigate in murky water. then communication arrays would fail, cutting the connection to surface controllers. Finally, propulsion systems would stop functioning, leaving the drones helpless and drifting. What made this particularly chilling was the precision involved. The interference targeted specific systems in exactly the sequence needed to neutralize the drones without causing permanent damage. It was like watching a chess master systematically eliminate an opponent's pieces while ensuring the game could continue. Whatever was causing these malfunctions understood human technology well enough to disable it surgically. The electromagnetic signatures recorded during these incidents revealed something that kept Dr. Chen awake for months afterward. The interference patterns weren't random electromagnetic noise. They showed organized structure that suggested intentional signal generation. Something in the deep water was actively broadcasting frequencies designed to disrupt human electronic equipment. This level of technological sophistication challenges everything we think we know about animal intelligence. We're talking about a creature that has apparently learned to recognize and counter advanced human technology through methods that remain completely mysterious. It's like discovering that dolphins have developed radar jamming capabilities, or that elephants have figured out how to disable satellite phones. The implications extend far beyond cryptozoology into questions about the nature of intelligence itself. If a large aquatic creature has developed electromagnetic manipulation abilities, it suggests cognitive capabilities that rival or exceed human technological understanding. This isn't just a big animal hiding in deep water. It's a sophisticated intelligence that has been observing and learning about human capabilities for decades. Local fishing communities have reported similar electronic interference for years, describing how radio equipment fails in specific river locations and GPS devices provide incorrect readings near certain deep pools. But these reports were always dismissed as equipment problems or atmospheric anomalies. Dr. Chen's systematic documentation proved that the interference is both real and deliberately targeted. The creature's apparent mastery of electromagnetic manipulation raises disturbing questions about what other capabilities it might possess. If it can disable electronic equipment from a distance, what else can it do? The traditional image of a lumbering prehistoric survivor hiding passively in deep water suddenly seems hopelessly naive. Recent expeditions have documented what researchers describe as active countermeasures that go far beyond simple electronic interference. Camera equipment positioned near suspected nesting sites is consistently repositioned overnight, always pointing away from areas of interest. Underwater monitoring devices are buried in sediment with surgical precision, rendering them useless without actually destroying them. Most unsettling of all, research equipment sometimes reappears in locations where it was never deployed, arranged in patterns that seem almost like messages. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a behavioral ecologist who spent 8 months studying these phenomena, described finding her cameras arranged in geometric configurations that couldn't have occurred naturally. The precision involved suggested not just intelligence, but a desire to communicate. The communication aspect has become increasingly evident as research efforts have intensified. The creature, or creatures, appear to be actively responding to human investigation attempts with behaviors that seem designed to convey specific information. When researchers deploy acoustic monitoring equipment, they're often rewarded with complex vocalizations that occur only after the equipment is in place. These responsive vocalizations show harmonic structures that mirror the frequencies used by human sonar equipment, as if the creature is demonstrating its awareness of human technology by incorporating those frequencies into its own communications. It's like listening to a jazz musician who has learned to improvise around the sounds of the recording studio itself. Linguistic analysis of these vocalizations has revealed patterns that suggest structured communication with grammatical rules and contextual meaning. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a specialist in animal communication from the University of Barcelona, has identified what appear to be distinct words or acoustic units that are combined in different sequences to convey different information. The vocabulary seems to include specific acoustic signatures for different types of human activity. Boat engines produce one type of responsive vocalization, while underwater equipment triggers completely different acoustic patterns. It's as if the creature has developed a specialized language for describing and categorizing human technological intrusions into its environment. But the most remarkable discovery came when Dr. Vasquez's team began playing recorded human speech underwater near suspected creature habitats. The response was immediate and sophisticated. Complex vocalizations that incorporated phonetic elements clearly derived from human language patterns. The creature wasn't just aware of human presence, it was actively learning human communication methods. The learning curve appears to be accelerating at an alarming rate. Vocalizations recorded in the 1990s show relatively simple acoustic structures, while recent recordings reveal dramatically increased complexity and apparent linguistic sophistication. Whatever intelligence inhabits these waters is rapidly developing more advanced communication capabilities in response to increased human contact. This linguistic evolution suggests not just individual learning, but cultural knowledge transfer within a population. Young creatures would need to learn these communication patterns from adults, implying social structures complex enough to support educational processes. The creature community appears to have developed specialized knowledge about human behavior and technology that is being passed down through generations. The social implications become even more staggering when you consider the coordination required for the habitat engineering projects discovered throughout the Congo River system. The construction and maintenance of underwater channels, the management of vegetation communities, and the selection of optimal nesting sites all require group decision-making and collaborative labor on a massive scale. Archaeological analysis of these engineering projects reveals construction phases spanning multiple decades, with different sections showing distinct architectural styles that suggest different generations of builders. It's like discovering that a sophisticated civilization has been developing and refining its infrastructure right under our noses, completely hidden from human observation. The construction techniques themselves demonstrate remarkable innovation and adaptation. Early channel sections show relatively simple excavation methods, while more recent additions incorporate sophisticated hydraulic engineering that optimizes water flow and minimizes maintenance requirements. The creature community has apparently been conducting its own research and development program for decades. Material analysis of construction sites reveals tool use on a scale unprecedented in animal behavior research. Massive rocks have been precisely positioned to create optimal water flow patterns. Vegetation has been selectively planted and cultivated to provide both food sources and structural support for underwater constructions. The level of planning and execution rivals human engineering projects, but perhaps most remarkably, the construction materials include human-made objects that have been repurposed for creature engineering projects. Metal fragments from sunken boats have been incorporated into channel walls. Concrete blocks from failed development projects have been precisely positioned to create underwater barriers. The creature community has learned to scavenge and utilize human technology for its own infrastructure needs. This adaptive use of human materials suggests not just opportunistic behavior, but strategic thinking about resource utilization. The creatures have apparently learned to monitor human activities and selectively acquire useful materials when opportunities arise. They're not just hiding from human civilization, they're learning from it and incorporating useful elements into their own cultural practices. The timeline of material acquisition correlates directly with major human development projects in the Congo region. When mining operations were abandoned in the 1980s, creature construction sites began incorporating metal components. When dam construction projects were canceled in the 1990s, concrete blocks started appearing in creature engineering works. It's like watching a shadow civilization that parallels human development while remaining completely hidden. Recent satellite imagery analysis has revealed that creature construction activities actually accelerate in response to human development projects. It's as if the creature community has learned to take advantage of human environmental modification efforts, incorporating beneficial changes while mitigating negative impacts through their own engineering interventions. This relationship between human and creature engineering suggests a level of environmental awareness that borders on the prophetic. The creatures appear to understand long-term ecological trends and plan their infrastructure modifications accordingly. They're not just reacting to environmental changes, they're anticipating and preparing for future conditions. Climate modeling data shows that creature engineering projects consistently improve ecosystem resilience against predicted climate change impacts. Channel modifications enhance water circulation during drought periods. Vegetation management creates buffer zones against flooding. Construction sites are positioned to remain functional under various climate scenarios that won't occur for decades. The foresight demonstrated in these projects implies access to environmental information that exceeds what any individual creature could gather through direct observation. It suggests either extraordinary individual intelligence or collective knowledge-sharing systems that allow the creature community to synthesize environmental data across vast spatial and temporal scales. The collective intelligence model becomes more convincing when you examine the geographic distribution of engineering projects. Modifications in upstream locations complement downstream constructions in ways that optimize ecosystem function across hundreds of miles of river system. This level of coordination requires communication and planning capabilities that approach human organizational sophistication. Recent discoveries have revealed what appear to be creature monitoring stations positioned at strategic locations throughout the river system. These sites feature elevated observation areas that provide clear sight lines across major river sections. Underwater acoustic equipment made from repurposed human materials, and communication arrays that seem designed for long-distance information sharing. The monitoring stations are connected by the underground channel network, creating a communication system that spans the entire Congo basin. Information gathered at these stations appears to be shared throughout the creature community, allowing coordinated responses to environmental changes or human activities across vast distances. This intelligence network explains how creature populations maintain coordinated behavior despite being spread across thousands of miles of waterway. It also explains how they've been able to avoid human detection so successfully. They have advance warning of human activities from monitoring stations positioned throughout their territory. The sophistication of this monitoring system raises profound questions about how long the creatures have been observing human civilization. Some monitoring stations show construction dates that predate significant European exploration of the Congo region. The creature community may have been systematically studying human behavior for over a century, accumulating detailed knowledge about human capabilities, intentions, and weaknesses. This long-term human observation program would explain the creature community's apparent ability to predict and counter human investigation efforts. They've had decades to study human behavior patterns, technological capabilities, and research methodologies. By the time scientists arrive with their equipment and theories, the creatures already know exactly what to expect and how to respond. So there you have it. Whether Mokele Mbembe is a living dinosaur, an undiscovered species, or something even more extraordinary, one thing is crystal clear: the Congo River holds secrets that challenge everything we thought we knew about our planet. The evidence keeps piling up, the mystery keeps deepening, and somewhere in those dark waters, something ancient and intelligent continues to outsmart our